Okay, so game 5 here reveals itself to have no source of plus actions. So it looks like your ideal state is to play our goons every turn and have a lot of money through silvers and golds. That really seems to be it for the board here. To me, seems like a silver opening with one of the trashers, either Raze or Lookout. My opponent on 4 here thinks for a bit and comes up with a different idea. Instead of picking up a silver here on the 4, my opponent goes for a Taxman. Now, Taxman is a card that is not highly rated, doesn't show up a lot in play, mostly because Taxman depletes your current hand. So it sets up your next turn, but it cuts away what you can buy on this turn. So we'll see how the Taxman works out. I go for my plan with the silver. Here my opponent picks up a Raze. I'm not sure which of these cards is better between Raze and Lookout. I know I want one of them. Maybe it should have been a second silver, but I want one of the trashers at least. I opt for the Lookout at this point. I can get a Raze later and raise the Lookout and then raise itself. Here on 5 I'm happy to get a Jester. I don't mind having the odd Jester in my deck. My opponent raises an estate and the Taxman comes out to trash a copper. And my opponent picks up another Raze. So my opponent has 2 Razes and a Lookout at this point, plus the Taxman. So a lot of trashing is going on the opposite end of the table here. On 2, I don't mind that Taxman attack. I'm able to get a Raze here. Not at all unpleased or displeased with that. My opponent trashes 2 coppers to 2 Razes, picks up another Raze. I use this Lookout to trash an estate, top decking the Jester, and 4 here is an easy silver. There's nothing else I really want. I'm not picking up the Taxman at this point. Lookout for my opponent, trashes a copper, passes it to me. Here, just get rid of this estate, the copper with the Raze rather, instead of trashing itself, because all I want is a silver. Although if I was tracking my deck, I would have known that there's a silver at the bottom, then could have gotten to goons. So that's something to note. Anyway, that silver goes to the Taxman there. As my opponent, I managed to curse my opponent and pick up a silver. So my opponent is amassing quite a bit of silver and gold through this Taxman and through actually buying some silver. That curse is immediately trashed by my opponent's Lookout there. And a Raze comes out, trashing an estate, so getting the pick of 2 cards. And Taxman again, this time on copper. So I have only $2 in hand instead of 3. I'd have liked to buy a silver. Lookout here trashes a copper, and this Raze also trashes a copper. Here I can raise this estate, hopefully looking for a silver to get to that elusive goons. My opponent plays their Lookout, trashing an estate. And we'll see how they follow up here. So I think my opponent is in a bit of a better state at this point. The Raze trashes itself there, so they'll get whatever card they want of the top 2. And it's a Taxman, and the Taxman comes and takes away my silver. So whatever dreams of goons that I had for this turn is probably gone. And on 3 here, my opponent picks up another silver. So they are chock full of silvers and gold at this point. So hopefully my Jester here can copy something good. I was hoping for silver there on that Raze, no such luck, and I copy a Lookout, which I give to my opponent. I don't want it. It's not very good at this point, and I know my opponent can deal with that, so why not give it to him? And I pick up a second Jester here. You really want to be reserving spots for goons at this point, but with all this Taxman play taking away my silvers and whatnot, I felt it's somewhat necessary. Look, again, silver gone. Here my opponent has 8 and picks up goons. Yeah, so I felt it necessary. Again, I'm denied from goons here. So the second Jester is just something the Taxman cannot take away from me, is what I'm trying to say. So my opponent is in a much better position right now, having the goons, having a lot more silvers and golds, and when you see your opponent play goons and then put down 3 golds, you know you're well and truly behind when you don't even have a goons yet. So here my opponent thinks for a while, picks up a province and a silver. I managed to copy a gold there, which is excellent, and get a goon, so a good turn for me. Here my opponent trashes a lookout to a Raze, so getting the choice of the top 3 cards there. Another Raze comes out and trashes another lookout, finds the goons, and on 3, going to buy probably another silver, but instead opts for a Raze. I opt for the silver instead. Here I have province, but I am forced to discard by these goons on 9 and 2 buys. My opponent goes for another goons and another Raze. So I get a second goons here. You really want a lot of goons in your deck because your opponent is going to be playing a lot of goons on you, and you want to try to keep up that pressure on them as well. Getting rid of the Jester there, because I obviously want to play my goons here. I think this is the first time I'm playing goons. My opponent gets a Raze and a silver on their last turn. I pick up a third goons, just piling up on the goons at this point. Hopefully trying to mount some kind of comeback. I don't know if that is even possible at this point. I keep the coppers here and the lookout because I want to trigger this shuffle with all the bad cards out of it. So that's the reason for that. Don't know if that made any sense. My opponent picks up a third goons on their last turn. Raze trashes itself here. And goons again. On 8, second province for my opponent. Well and truly ahead here. 7 for me is just more goons. So at this point in the game, be prepared to play with a 3-card hand. Jester curses my opponent. I pick up a gold. So here, this is why you want lots of goons, so you can always have our goons in hand, even though they collide sometimes. Here I have 6. Shouldn't have triggered that reshuffle with our goons out of it, but I did. Mistake on my part, I believe. Pick up a gold at that point instead of a goons. I believe I have enough terminals. Jester here is dead. I pick up more gold. Just trying to get hands where like this, where I can buy province. However, my opponent has hands like that, but they're also able to buy province, and half the pile is empty by the time I'm ready to buy any. So province is easy enough. That's an easy enough discard there as well. Raze trashes itself, and this is awful. This is awful. I can do nothing with any of these cards. Just play goons, and at this point I decide to go for full green, hoping something magical would happen. Going for estate and coppers at this point, but really the game is effectively over. At this point my opponent has 1 and 1 on play too. That Taxman and the Razes at the beginning of the game there did a lot of work. Here I gained the Duchess for no real reason after buying that Duchy. 8 is just Goons Estate for my opponent, so they're angling for a kind of 3 pile at this point on Goons Estates and Razes, which is fine. I mean, that wins. Emptying the provinces wins. I copy a goal there, but it's all irrelevant at this point as my opponent comes out with Goons, picks up an estate. I pick up a duchy here, and Raze trashes the curse that I gave my opponent. Goons picks up estate copper as I pick up a duchy, and this Goons effectively seals the game for my opponent here. So thank you for watching, and see you in the last game of this match.